Okay, we're finally at our last step here. Woo. We're finally at step 7 of updating our app module configs to connect the routes. Almost there. We're almost there. So let's go ahead and move over to our appmodule.ts file. And this is kind of like our main configuration for setting up routes and so forth. So we'll add some updates here for the Okta login configuration. So I'll make some Okta imports here from the Okta Angular SDK. So we have this Okta config, auth module, and callback component.
I also need to import Okta Auth from the Okta Auth JavaScript SDK. We'll use these in some of the upcoming videos.
We also need to do an import here on this myappconfig. That's that same file that we created earlier. Basically holding the properties here, the configs for our client application. And we'll create this new Okta config here. I'll go ahead and write the code first, then once I have the code written, then I'll come back and talk about it.
We define an Okta config constant, which is just a reference to our myappconfig.oidc. Then we create the Okta Auth instance and pass in the Okta config as a parameter. We'll make use of the Okta Auth instance in the next video. We're just doing some setup configuration work now.
And so in a second here, we'll connect the routes for /login and also connect the routes for the callback. All right, so let's go ahead and connect the routes. So we had that login /callback. And so we'll have it use this component, Okta callback component. And then for login by itself, then we'll actually have to make a call to the login component that we just created. Okay, so login component is the one that we created in some previous videos. So that's our code. And then there's also this Okta callback component. So this Okta callback component will be executed once the user's been authenticated and they're redirected to our application. Normally, we'd have to write code to parse the response and store the OAuth and OIDC tokens, but the Okta callback component will do all of that work for you. So that's why we're using the Okta callback component in this scenario.